Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on Arrow Season 7. And this is going to be my review for episode 13 for this season. Lucky number 13, you could call it. Otherwise entitled Star City Slayer. But of course, spoiler alert, if you have not watched the episode, go watch it. Some big stuff happens in this episode in a couple of different parts, both in the present day and the future stuff. So, yeah, go watch the episode, then come back to this later. But if you are, if you've watched the episode, you continue on with this video, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below your favourite moment from this episode, your biggest, oh, what the hell, wasn't expecting that moment, and just your general opinions, what you liked, what you didn't like, leave them all down there. And of course, if you enjoyed the episode and enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like on it to show your support. So last episode was obviously the big 150th episode where it was part documentary style, but I guess the big reveal towards the end of it was that Mia or Blackstar was with Connor Hawke, aka John Diggle Jr. in the future. They were watching the documentary and they go back to the quiver and but we see them go there and they mention how the vigilantes fell and they got exactly what they deserved and stuff like that. So there's a different animosity towards, towards the vigilantes there. But we start off the episode by seeing the Slayer, as we'll call him now, doing all the note stuff and just being a bit creepy. And we see that he has all these images on his board. So I think you saw Laurel, Dinah, and Diggle specifically. There might have been Renee there as well, but I know you saw Laurel, Dinah, and Diggle on there. So yeah, Star City Slayer. There's the Star City Slayer. But we do see Renee getting a note as well, which takes into Dinah and they have a conversation about it all and just basically a bit of a filler scene with a bit of, setting up and motivation for Dinah, because stuff happens later in this episode with Dinah. But we see how the Slayer actually goes about killing his victims. Essentially, he injects them with a drug which sort of immobilizes them and then he slits their throat and stuff like that. A lot of blood. It's basically almost like Petrificus Totalis from the Harry Potter universe. Just, hey, you're petrified, not moving, not petrified, you're just frozen, not doing much now, are ya? But we do find out that one of his old victims was helped Diaz. He was like the councilman or something like that, and he helped Diaz, and he was meant to be in prison. He got out of prison and stuff like that. So that's one of the reasons that the Star City Slayer goes after him. We find out more about that later in the episode as to why he's specifically targeting certain people. Now we do get a little Flash cameo in the form of David Singh or Captain Singh, or not a Flash cameo, but a Flash character cameo. When Dinah rings in, because obviously Dinah used to work for the CCPD and they go over certain things. It's basically, once again, another motivational thing for Dinah in part, but there's also a Blockbuster name drop. The DC Comics villain who was rumored to possibly be in this season. There was a casting that sounded like him. Maybe that's why they name dropped him here, because a lot of people theorize a Blockbuster would be in this season. And they mentioned Bloodhaven and him coming over there. But yeah, little name drop there. And speaking of little comic Easter eggs as well and references, they do talk about Oliver Queen's famous chili, which is obviously a thing in the comics. The Green Arrow's chili, it's it's super hot. No one can really eat it. It's just way too hot. And I think even William makes a joke about it being too spicy and stuff like that. When Oliver Queen thinks it's perfect. I think even Felicity says that the chili is perfect as well. So little references there to certain things in the comics. Now, one thing I wasn't expecting in this episode was William's grandparents showing up, and apparently William called them because William, just to get, for Oliver to listen essentially, but William's grandparents want to take over Guardian ship, if that's the correct term to use, of William, and they just don't feel that Oliver's the best person to be taking care of their grandchild. And to be completely honest, I agree. I just think the point that, I know it's his son, but sometimes you just know, okay, maybe it is silly for my son to be here. He would be much safer somewhere else. Sure, Central City, not the safest place, but he's away from anyone that's really associated with Oliver and would be targeting William. And William's not going to be in Oliver Queen's goddamn house and making him an easy target. So you'd have to, I don't know, it was a bit silly that neither of them thought, maybe it should be the way to go. And then there was maybe a bit of fight, I really want to keep my son here. There was no thought that William actually should have gone there, which I thought was a bit silly, but obviously it was meant to lead into some big part towards the end of the episode. But anyway. But as we saw in the trailer, we go off to the haunted house, or the haunted mansion. No Eddie Murphy here this time, unfortunately, but we go to the haunted house. Very creepy, very well shot, almost did feel like a horror movie, and wouldn't say there was jump scares. I think there was maybe attempted jump scares, but jump scares for network television, so they weren't really that scary. But yeah, I thought they did really well in regards to making it creepy and making it look creepy with blood and just weird things around. But we do see, as we saw in the trailer spoiled this. I was sort of surprised that they spoiled this because everyone knew it was coming. Arrow actually does a pretty good job at not spoiling things in their trailers too much, and they spoiled this big part. I guess they maybe wanted people to like watch, go, oh, this is where this happens to Dinah. But they spoiled in the trailer. So Dinah gets her throat slit. It's by Stanley. Like, I've been calling him the Slayer, but, you know, I think most people knew going into this episode that the Star City Slayer was Stanley, because that's who he is in the comics. They even found like a slab side jumpsuit in one of the wardrobes hung up in a coat hanger. Like, Stanley's very organized, isn't he? With his old jumpsuit, just opens it up to have a look at it and be reminded a lot of the time. But yeah, so he slits Dinah's throat. There's even like him like being obsessed with Oliver and tracking him down and all of that. Like from the past, like who's the Green Arrow and all of this, and finding out certain information. But essentially, Dinah is saved by the magical T-Sphere with the burning stuff to seal it up. We knew she was going to survive. We have the future stuff, but we've all been waiting for when her throat would be slit, because we noticed, I think, was it the first episode she was in? Or was it the second episode she was in the future? Because it was dark, so I wasn't too sure if we had to wait till it was a bit lighter so you could see the throat slit. But everyone was waiting for it to be cut. And they even teased early in the season when Kodiak threw a shield at her, it just missed her neck. So it's basically like Hot Tub Time Machine with the guy when he loses his arm, and they're basically waiting for him to, you know, lose his arm in the past. It was basically like that with Dinah. We kept waiting, but we finally got it this episode. And yeah, so in the recovery thing, I think she said that she was still trying to talk and stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see how long it takes her to recover. I think she won't be able to use her canary cry, or maybe if she can use it, it really, really hurts. It's like when you got like a broken leg or something. It's not going to be good to run on it, is it? So it might be something along those lines with Dinah and her cry, but we'll have to wait and see, I'm guessing. But easily one of the best, if not the best scenes in the episode was Stanley like taking the power out and getting into Oliver, Felicity and William's place, like immobilizing them with like his drug in the form of gas, which was pretty good. That whole scene was really well. Just like the guy who plays Stanley, who was Brendan Fletcher, did a really good job. Important thing to note, he didn't die, so he's just been put back in slab side. So will we see him back again? Maybe. I did say in my trailer breakdown, just leading up to this episode, I would sort of be disappointed if they just got rid of Stanley in this episode, and they did. However, it's not like he's dead. He's in slab side, he could get out again. But I thought they might have done something with like maybe a multi-episode arc with him. But it was just more one of those things like bring him back to be an episodic villain and then he goes away. So I have to take marks off of that because I don't like it when shows do that. But there's a possibility that he could come back in maybe a couple of episodes time and just gets out of slab side again in some way, shape or form. Maybe there's a prison breakout. Who knows? But yeah, we basically learned that Stanley was essentially, I wouldn't say like full-on abused, but essentially abused, you know, forced to take drugs so his father would, so he'd listen to his father, ended up killing his brother or something like that. So not the best past for Stanley there. And yeah, I don't think I'd want that childhood, so it wasn't a good one for him. But one thing, Stanley, you're very bad at keeping track of time when it comes to like your drug. Like, shouldn't you know how long it should affect people and give yourself at least a 2-minute warning period where people might start to get feeling back? Like, okay, I gotta act before that moment, just in case. I don't know, maybe he's getting a bit too emotional or something, Stanley. And that's why Oliver and Felicity in particular were like trying to egg him on, mainly Felicity trying to egg him on and stuff like that. So maybe that's why they were doing that. But Stanley, mate, if you're going to be a serial killer, try and keep track of like your, one of your main tools, because you did a poor job in that scene. But throughout the episode, Curtis had been teasing this new job in DC and whether he, Washington DC, and whether he was going to go, and he eventually goes. But he also leaves all of Helix, or whatever it's called, Helix, which is called whatever it's Helix something, whatever it is, to Felicity. So Felicity's the sole owner of that, and she's going to push that forward. Maybe this season, I guess we'll see the foundation of it or something like that. Have to wait and see. But Curtis wasn't the only departure. We also had William leaving for his grandparents in Central City. So he's off. Is this the last time we see William because of the future stuff? I've been wondering, okay, well, when's he going to leave? Because he says that Oliver and Felicity left him, but it's like a good parting there. So is there another meeting between the two where they actually do leave him? I don't have to wait and see. Maybe William, I guess we can just assume that maybe future William is lying about everything, but we'll have to wait and see. But now we get into the future stuff. There is one thing in the present day which I didn't mention, but that's because it's important to mention at the end. So we jump into the future stuff, and this is where we see future Team Arrow go to the Quiver, but of course they're taken down by Connor Hawke and Mia or Blackstar, which I think we all knew would happen. But Roy's in this episode, so Roy's back into everything. And I guess William as well, he's been a bit AFK as well. But William and Roy are back properly in these future flash forward things. But essentially, Blackstar takes them down because she wants the Archer access codes, which the future Team Arrow, as we're calling them, like the good guys, had been talking about it as we entered into this episode with the future stuff, and she wants the access code so she can try and locate Felicity, because she says, she believes Felicity's alive. She doesn't 100% confirm that Felicity's alive. She just believes that Felicity is alive and is like in hiding somewhere, which I think they're going to do in the future. I don't think they're going to lie about that. I just have a feeling they are probably going to make Felicity alive in the future. Have to wait and see though, but I'd probably give like a 50-50 chance for each of them at this stage. It was interesting having Dinah recognizing Connor Hawke or John Diggle Jr. They don't really dive too much into that. It's just something that happens. So I'm sure get more backstory maybe in regards to what happened to Diggle and stuff like that, and why Connor's doing this in the future instead of maybe being on the side of like Dinah and Zoe and stuff. So that'll be interesting. The fight scene in the quiver between Mia and Connor and then the rest of them, obviously William can be a part of that for the most part because he's pretty much hopeless, but that and Zoe was tied up, I think. So that whole fight scene was really cool, really well done. I think it's just the layout of the quiver and stuff, it just allows for a really cool fight scene. So I was a big fan of that. But then in the current day, we got the big bombshell that lines up to the end of the future stuff, where we find out that Felicity is pregnant, which lines up with like one child leaving and another child entering the world, and then we find out in the future that Mia is actually Felicity's daughter and her name is Mia Smoke. Look, this is the obvious one. I think as we went into this season, because it is Green Arrow, so it's about Oliver Queen, who's like the better half in this situation. It's Felicity, his better half, or his other half. So this was the obvious one. However, I think a lot of people thought they might do something a bit more interesting, because what we have in the future is that we have William, the son of the Green Arrow, and also, stepson of Felicity Smoke. So just there's their like future, their legacy. You have John Diggle Jr., there's their legacy. You have Zoe, the legacy of Renee. So a lot of people thought that we might, just because it's Star City, that Mia would have been maybe a Lance. Not necessarily Laurel Lance, but also maybe Sarah Lance as well. There could have been a possibility there. They wanted the obvious option. I don't think you're going to be mad that it's the obvious option, because it's the obvious option. It's the option that I think a lot of people theorize, just because it just makes narrative sense, because we can follow maybe not follow the pregnancy of Felicity, but we can see it happen, like develop and the child be born. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if we see this child being born maybe around Crisis on Infinite Earths come next season, but it's easy for them to do that, and I think it's much easier to do Mia being a Smoke or Oliver and Felicity's daughter, rather than make her a Lance, whether it be Sarah's daughter or Laurel's daughter. I think that's why they did it. As I said, the more interesting, I think, more sensible option in regards to like legacy, like leaving legacies for different characters, was to make her a Lance. But the more obvious one, just in regards to ease and like, what's the word? Just like following it in like a narrative sense, because Felicity can go through that pregnancy. It just makes more sense in regards to that. So each side had their pros and cons, but they went with the more obvious one, which I think most people were predicting as we went into the season. But then they kept saying, like, oh no, Mia's not who you think she is, but then she ended up being exactly who everyone thought she would be at the beginning of the season. So I guess they were just trying to like push down everyone's expectations, or just trying to push down the obvious option, but it still was obvious when it got revealed. So it's sort of confusing. It's like Zoom and Savitar. Everyone knew it was these characters, and they tried to say it wasn't, and they ended up being those characters anyway. So whatever. I'm not mad at it. I've seen a lot of people get mad at it. As I said, it's the obvious option, so I don't think you can get mad at it. But overall, I thought this episode was pretty enjoyable. As I said, I do have to sort of take points off the fact that Stanley got taken down, but then again, he could come back. But I just don't like it when, they set up something that could have been better, and maybe they take him down a bit easier, but he could get out eventually. The future stuff was interesting. Maybe could have got like one or two more scenes. I was sort of waiting for the future stuff to come back into it, but hopefully we get more of that as the episode. I think we get future stuff in episode 14, 15, and then episode 16 is an all future episode. So maybe that's why they're not showing as much as they did earlier on this season with the future stuff in certain episodes. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed this episode. Another very solid episode of Arrow. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Dinah in the next couple of episodes. And Arrow is not back until March 4th. So we're gone for like, what, 2 or 3 weeks. So bit of a bummer, but we get these breaks every now and then. But thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show your support. Let me know in the comments section down below your various opinions on what we went over in this video. Did you like the reveal of Mia or Blackstar? Was it super obvious to the point where you were disappointed? Or are you a Felicity fan where to the point you're like, yeah, I like that? Let me know in the comment section down below and your various opinions on the entire episode. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. I'll catch you later, guys. Goodbye.